Vakshaha Shiladankana Kalaye Ito Nrsimha Bharato Nrsimha Yato Yato Yamitato Nrsimha Ahir Nrsimha Ridaye Nrsimha Nrsimha Madim Sharana Prataye Tavakara Kamala Vare Naka Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanu Bringam Keshavadrita Narari Rupa Jai Jagadishare Jai Jagadishare Jai Jagadishare Jai Nrsimha Jai Krishna, 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 Hey. Krishna, 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 Hey. Krishna, 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 Rakshamam. Krishna, 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 Bahimam. Rama, Raghava, Rama, Raghava, Rama, Raghava, Rakshamam. Krishna, Kesava, Krishna, Kesava, Krishna, Kesava, Bahimam. So we're reading from the Krishna book, and this is Mother Yashoda binding Lord Krishna, and it is chapter 9.
I'm really sure of me. That's what the mark is, no?
No?
Ah, sorry. Yes,
Yeah.
it's here.
Okay. In the meantime, Mother Yashoda returned to the churning place. After setting the overflowing milk pan in order, she saw the broken pot in which the churning yogurt was kept. Since she could not find her boy, she concluded that the broken pot was his work. She began to smile as she thought, the child is very clever. After breaking the pot, he has left this place, fearing punishment. After she sought all over, she found a big wooden grinding mortar, which was kept upside down, and she found her son sitting on it. He was taking butter, which was hanging from the ceiling on a swing, and he was feeding it to the monkeys. She saw Krishna looking this way and that way in fear of her because he was so conscious of his naughty behavior. After seeing her son so engaged, she very silently approached him from behind. Krishna, however, quickly saw her coming at him with a stick in her hand, and immediately he got down from the grinding mortar and began to flee in fear. Mother Yashoda chased him to all corners, trying to capture the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is never approached even by the meditations of great yogis. In other words, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, who is never caught by the yogis and speculators, was playing just like a little child for such a great devotee as Mother Yashoda. Mother Yashoda, however, could not easily catch the fast-running child. Because of her thin waist and heavy body, she tried to follow him as fast as possible. Her hair loosened and the flowers in her hair fell to the ground. Although she was tired, she somehow reached her naughty child and captured him. When he was caught, Krishna was almost on the point of crying. He smeared his hands over his eyes, which were anointed with black eye cosmetics. The child saw his mother's face while she stood over him, and his eyes became restless from fear. Mother Yashoda could understand that Krishna was unnecessarily afraid, and for his benefit she wanted to allay his fears. Being the topmost well-wisher of her child, Mother Yashoda began to think, if the child is too fearful of me, I don't know what will happen to him. Mother Yashoda then threw away his stick. In order to punish him, she thought to bind his hands with some ropes. She did not know it, but actually it was impossible for her to bind the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Mother Yashoda was thinking that Krishna was her tiny child. She did not know that the child had no limitation. There was no inside or outside of him, nor beginning nor end. He is unlimited and all-pervading. Indeed, he is himself the whole cosmic manifestation. Still, Mother Yashoda was thinking of Krishna as her child. Although he is beyond the reach of all the senses, she endeavoured to bind him to the wooden grinding mortar. But when she tried to bind him, she still found that the ropes she was using was too short. By 2 inches, she gathered more ropes from the house and added to it. But at the end, she found that the same shortage. In this way, she connected all the ropes available at home. But when the final knot was added, she saw that it was still 2 inches too short. Mother Yashoda was smiling, but she was astonished. How was it happening? In attempting to bind her son, she became tired. She was perspiring, and the garland on her head fell down. Then Lord Krishna appreciated the hard labour of his mother, and being compassionate upon her, he agreed to be bound up by the ropes. Krishna, playing as a human child in the house of Mother Yashoda, was performing his own selected pastimes. Of course, no one can control the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The pure devotee surrenders himself onto the lotus feet of the Lord, who may either protect or vanquish the devotee. But for his part, the devotee never forgets his own position of surrender. Similarly, the Lord also feels transcendental pleasure by submitting himself to the protection of the devotee. This was exemplified by Krishna's surrender unto his mother Yashoda. Krishna is the supreme bestower of all kinds of liberation to his devotees, but the benediction which was bestowed upon Mother Yashoda was never appreciated, so it was never experienced even by Lord Brahma or Lord Shiva or the goddess of fortune. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is known as the son of Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, is never so completely known to the yogis and speculators, but he is easily available to his devotees. Nor is he appreciated by the supreme reservoir of all pleasure. Nor is he appreciated as the supreme reservoir of all pleasure by the yogis and speculators. After binding her son, Mother Yashoda engaged herself in the household affairs. At that time, bound up to the wooden mortar, Krishna could see a pair of trees before him, which were known as the Arjuna trees. The great red reservoir of pleasure, Lord Sri Krishna thus thought to himself, Mother Yashoda, first of all, left without feeding me sufficient milk, and therefore I broke the pot of yogurt and distributed the stock of butter in charity to the monkeys. Now she has bound me up to a wooden mortar, so I shall do something more mischievous than before. And thus he thought of pulling down the 2 very tall Arjuna trees. There is a history behind the pair of Arjuna trees. In their previous lives, the trees were born as the human sons of Kuvera, and the names were Nala Kuvera and Manigriva. Fortunately, they came within the vision of the Lord in their previous lives. They were cursed by the great sage Narada in order to receive the highest benediction of seeing the Lord. This benediction curse was bestowed upon them because of their forgetfulness due to intoxication. The story will be narrated in the next chapter. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta report of the 9th chapter of Krishna, Mother Yashoda binding Lord Krishna.
Okay, let's put it here. Okay. Chapter 10, Deliverance of Nalakuvara and Manigriva. The story of cursing Nalakuvara and Manigriva and their deliverance by Krishna under the all-blissful desire of the great sage Narada is here described. The 2 great demigods Nalakuvara and Manigriva were sons of the treasurer of the demigods, Kuvera, who was a great devotee of Lord Shiva. By the grace of Lord Shiva, Kuvera's material opulence had no limit. As a rich man's son often becomes addicted to wine and woman, so these two sons of Kuvera were also addicted to wine and sex. Once, these two demigods, desiring to enjoy, entered the garden of Lord Shiva in the province of Kailash on the bank of Mandakini Ganges. There they drank much and engaged in hearing the sweet singing of beautiful women who accompanied them in that garden of fragrant flowers. In an intoxicated condition, they both entered the water of the Ganges, which was full with lotus flowers, and there they began to enjoy the company of the young girls exactly as the male elephant enjoys the female elephants within the water. While they were thus enjoying themselves in the water, all of a sudden Narada, the great sage, happened to pass that way. He could understand that the demigods Nalakuvara and Manigriva were too intoxicated and could not even see that he was passing. The young girls, however, were not so intoxicated as the demigods, and they at once became ashamed at being naked before the great sage Narada. They began to cover themselves with all haste. The two demigod sons of Kuvera were so intoxicated that they could not appreciate the presence of the sage Narada, and therefore did not cover their bodies. On seeing the two demigods so degraded by intoxication, Narada desired their welfare, and therefore he exhibited his causeless mercy upon them by cursing them. Because the great sage was compassionate upon them, he wanted to finish their false enjoyment of intoxication and association with young girls, and wanted them to see Lord Krishna face to face. He conceived of cursing them as follows. He said that the attraction for material enjoyment is due to an increase of the mode of passion. A person in the material world, when favored by the material opulence of riches, generally becomes addicted to three things: intoxication, sex, and gambling. Materially opulent men, being puffed up with the accumulation of wealth, also become so merciless that they indulge in killing Hachuta in Goranga in killing animals by opening slaughterhouses, and they think that they themselves will never die. Such foolish persons, forgetting the laws of nature, become overly infatuated with the body. They forget that the material body, even though very much advanced in civilization, up to the position of the demigods, will finally be burned to ashes. And while one is living, whatever the external condition of the body may be, within there is only stool, urine, and various kinds of worms. Thus, being engaged in jealousy and violence to other bodies, materialists cannot understand the ultimate goal of life. And without knowing this goal of life, they generally glide down to a hellish condition in their next life. Such foolish persons commit all kinds of sinful activities on account of this temporary body, and they are even unable to consider whether this body actually belongs to them. Generally, it is said that the body belongs to the persons who feed the body. One might therefore consider whether this body belongs to one personally, or to the master to whom one renders service. The master of slaves claims full right to the bodies of the slaves, because the master feeds the slaves. It may be questioned, then, whether the body belongs to the father, who is the seed-giving master of this body, or to the mother, who develops the child's body in her womb. Foolish persons are engaged in committing all sorts of sins due to the misconception of identifying the material body with the self. But one should be intelligent enough to understand to whom this body belongs.
A foolish person indulges in killing other animals to maintain the body, but he does not consider whether the body belongs to him, or his father, or mother, or maternal grandfather. Sometimes a father gives his daughter in charity to a person with the view of getting back the daughter's child as a son. The body may also belong to a stronger man who forces it to work for him. Sometimes the slave's body is sold to the master on the basis that the body will belong to the master. And at the end of life, the body belongs to the fire, because the body is given to the fire and burnt to ashes. Or the body is thrown into the street to be eaten by the dogs and vultures. Before committing all kinds of sins to maintain the body, one should understand to whom the body belongs. Ultimately, it is concluded that the body is a product of material nature, and at the end it merges into material nature. Therefore, the conclusion should be that the body belongs to material nature. One should not wrongly think that the body belongs to him. To maintain a false possession, why should one indulge in killing? Why should one kill innocent animals to maintain the body? When a man is infatuated with the false prestige of opulence, he does not care for any moral instruction, but indulges in wine, women, and animal killing. In such circumstances, a poverty-stricken man is often better situated, because a poor man thinks of himself in relation to other bodies. A poor man often does not wish to inflict injuries upon other bodies, because he can understand more readily that when he himself is injured, he feels pain. As such, the great sage Narada considered that because the demigods Nala Kuvera and Manigriva were so infatuated by false prestige, they should be put into a condition of life devoid of opulence. A person who has a pin prick in his body does not wish others to be pricked by pins. A considerate man in the life of poverty does not wish others to be put also into that condition. Generally, it is seen that when one has risen from a poverty-stricken life and becomes wealthy, creates some charitable institution at the end of his life so that other poverty-stricken men might be benefited. In short, a compassionate poor man may consider others' pains and pleasures with empathy. A poor man may be seldom puffed up with false pride, and he may be freed from all kinds of infatuation. He may remain satisfied by whatever he gains for his maintenance by the grace of the Lord. To remain in the poverty-stricken condition is a kind of austerity. According to the Vedic culture, therefore, the Brahmins, as a matter of routine, keep themselves in a poverty-stricken condition, to save themselves from the false prestige of material opulence. False prestige due to advancement of material prosperity is a great impediment for spiritual emancipation. A poverty-stricken man cannot become unnaturally fat by eating more and more, and on account of not being able to eat more than he requires, his senses are not very turbulent. When the senses are not very turbulent, he cannot become violent. Another advantage of poverty is that a saintly person can easily enter a poor man's house, and thus the poor man can take advantage of the saintly person's association. A very opulent man does not allow anyone to enter his house, and therefore the saintly person cannot enter. According to the Vedic system, a saintly person takes the position of a mendicant, so that on the plea of begging something from the householder, he can enter any house. The householder, who has usually forgotten everything about spiritual advancement because he is busy maintaining family affairs, can be benefited by the association of a saintly person. There is a great chance for the poor man to become liberated through association with a saint. Of what use are persons who are puffed up with material opulence and prestige if they are bereft of the association of saintly persons and devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? The great sage Narada thereafter thought that it was his duty to put those demigods into a condition where they could not be falsely proud of their material opulence and prestige. Narada was compassionate and wanted to save them from their fallen life. They were in the mode of darkness and being therefore unable to control their senses. They were addicted to sex life. It was the duty of a saintly person like Narada to save them from their abominable condition. In animal life, the animal has no sense to understand that he's naked. But Kuvera was the treasurer of the demigods, a very responsible man. And Nala Kuvera and Manigriva were two of his sons. And yet, they became so animalistic and irresponsible that they could not understand, due to intoxication, that they were naked. To cover the lower parts of the body is a principle of human civilization. And when men or women forget this principle, they become degraded. Narada therefore thought,
Narada therefore thought that the best punishment for them was to make them immovable living entities or trees. Trees are, by nature's law, immovable. Although trees are covered by the mode of ignorance, they cannot do harm. The great sage Narada thought it fitting that although the brothers, by his mercy, would be punished to become trees, they continued to keep their memory to be able to know why they were being punished. After changing the bodies, a living entity generally forgets his previous life, but in special cases, by the grace of the Lord, as with Nalakuvara and Manigriva, one can remember. Sage Narada therefore contemplated that the two demigods should remain for 100 years in the time of the demigods, in the form of trees, and after that they would be fortunate enough to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face by his causeless mercy. And thus they would be again promoted to the life of the demigods and great devotees of the Lord. After this, the great sage Narada returned to his abode known as Nrsimha, and the two demigods turned into trees, known as twin Arjuna trees. The two demigods were favored by the causeless mercy of Narada and given a chance to grow in Nanda's courtyard, and see Lord Krishna face to face. Although the child Krishna was bound up to the wooden mortar, he began to proceed toward the twin trees in order to fulfill the prophecy of great devotee Narada. Lord Krishna knew that Narada was his great devotee and that the trees standing before him as twin Arjuna trees were actually the sons of Kuvera. I must now fulfill the words of my great devotee Narada, he thought. Then he began to proceed through the passage between the two trees. Although he was able to pass through the passage, the large wooden mortar struck horizontally between the trees. Taking advantage of this, Lord Krishna began to pull the rope which was tied to the mortar. As soon as he pulled, with great strength, the two trees with all branches and limbs fell down immediately with a great sound. Out of the broken, fallen trees came two great personalities shining like blazing fire. All sides became illuminated and beautiful by their presence. The two purified bodies immediately came before Lord Krishna and bowed down to offer their respects and prayers in the following words. Dear Lord Krishna, you are the original personality of Godhead, master of all mystic powers. Learned Brahmanas know very well that this cosmic manifestation is an expansion of your potencies, which are sometimes manifest and sometimes unmanifest. You are the original provider of the life, body, and senses of all living entities. You are the eternal God, Lord Vishnu, who is all-pervading, the imperishable controller of everything. You are the original source of the cosmic manifestation, which is acting under the spell of the three modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance. You are living as the supreme in all the multi-forms of living entities, and you know very well that what is going on within their bodies and minds. Therefore, you are the supreme director of all activities of all living entities. But although you are in the midst of everything which is under the spell of the material modes of nature, you are not affected by such contaminated qualities. No one under the jurisdiction of the material modes can understand your transcendental qualities, which existed before the creation. Therefore, you are called the Supreme Brahman, who is always glorified by his personal internal potencies. In this material world, you can be known only by your different incarnations. Although you assume different types of bodies, These bodies are not part of the material creation. They are always full of transcendental potencies of unlimited opulence, strength, beauty, fame, wisdom, and renunciation. In the material existence, there is a difference between the body and the owner of the body, but because you appear in your original spiritual body, there is no such difference for you. When you appear, your uncommon activities indicate that you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such uncommon activities are not possible for anyone in material existence. You are that Supreme Personality of Godhead, now appearing to cause the birth and death as well as liberation of the living entities. And you are full with all your plenary expansions. You can bestow on everyone all kinds of benediction, O Lord, all sorts of all fortune and goodness. We offer our respectful obeisances unto you. You are the all-pervading Supreme Personality of Godhead, the source of peace, and the Supreme Person in the dynasty of King Yadu. O Lord, our Father, known as Kubera, the demigod, is your servant. Similarly, the great sage Narada is also your servitor, and only by their grace have we been able to see you personally. We therefore pray that we may always be engaged in your transcendental loving service by speaking only about your glories and hearing about your transcendental activities. Hare Krishna. All glories to the pure devotees like Narada Muni. All glories to Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Panchatattva.